Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and anyone else who's watching, to AGE February Open. I'm Colin Honigman, and I'm joined by the one and only Mitch Leslie.
Good to be here. I love how you point at the producer when we go live as
Yeah.
opposed to the other way around. Like, who's running this show? I mean,
We run it together.
This guy is absolutely running. How you doing? Yeah, great to be here, Colin. I mean, it's time for yet another AGE Open. It is February, of course, for those that are struggling and still feel like it's May of 2020. I don't blame you at all. But I tell you what, it's a great time to be a fan of competitive flesh and blood. And if that's what you like, we've got some of the best out here in SoCal, and many players have also traveled out to get here. So we're strapped in for a great day. For those that aren't familiar with how our circuit works here, of course, our open events all feed into a player's championship. It's a circuit. You turn up here, you play, you earn yourself circuit points, and you put yourself in the running to earn even bigger prizes at the player's championship later on in the piece. We'll talk more about that later. But man, yeah, great to be back. I've had a bit of a break from AGEs. So you guys have been running it beautifully since I've been gone, man. But yeah, good to be sat next to you.
Thank you. I work very hard, so I appreciate you calling that out.
Cut to before the stream. Colin's like, all right, let's go live, and I'm going to black out for 6 hours. I'll see you on the other side. Yeah, really working hard out here. Hey, if you love what you're doing, you're not working a day in your life. Good chance, I guess, to talk, I guess, a little bit about where we are in the grand scheme of AGE right now. Right?
We're in Hawthorne, California.
Is that where we are?
Technically,
Okay, Hawthorne. We are, of course, live from Lawndale.
Oh, it's Lawndale.
Yeah. All these suburbs are subdivided. I mean, as someone who, like, obviously wasn't even an American native, in case you couldn't tell when I came here, I was really confused by that, but I digress. We are here at Collectors Legion in Lawndale. Basically, Redondo Beach. Beautiful out here. Fantastic store. Big shout out, of course, to Collector Legion for partnering with us in this particular venture. We've got enough room, and thank God for that, because we're uncapped. I think we're at 60 players and counting so far. So we're looking at 6, maybe 7 rounds of Swiss before cut to top 8.
Yeah, we're going to see if those 4 extra people show up and push us to a very, very long day, or if we just have a regular long day. But yeah, we're not sharing it with a giant Magic tournament this week, so there won't be like 150 people behind us, but it's still going to be jam-packed. We got a lot of great players, and we got a lot of great new heroes that people are probably going to be playing this week too.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Heavy Hitters, Flesh and Blood's most recent set has released, and we've already seen some of our top players take these decks for a spin out in Hartford. Of course, we had a Sealed Calling in Hartford, and then a Battle Hardened. A lot of people were very interested to see what decks would start to rise to the top in the classic constructed format. The winner, of course, Yuki Lee Bender. No surprise to see them with their dominant showing on KO. That's a great story I want to sort of talk about. We've got quite a few of them here, I think, to jump into, but we can have a look at our standings. Do you want to quickly give people a bit of an idea of where we're at?
You mentioned that this is a circuit. We've already had our first one that was taken down by the Lube himself, Allan. The Luber Juan, Allan Lube, he's the Luber. Lubers rise up, all of that. He took it down. His first.
Just so many in-jokes. It's just in-jokeception here,
That's his whole thing. Allan Lube is his channel. Check out his YouTube channel. You can learn how to play Bravo like him. We had a great turnout last time. 61 players. Yeah, we didn't make it to 7 rounds, but huge turnout. Great top 8. We had a lot of great players, including Allan and Feiyu and Zane the Rock Johnson and Eugene on Kano. So it was just a fantastic showing. And so they won some money. They won some points. This all leads up to the end of the year where we have our Players' Championship, which is an invitational. So yeah, it's one of the driving factors, I think, for the turnout. Month to month is that you get points every month, no matter, you even get participation points basically. So really you just need one standout day in the year to make it into that invitation.
Yeah, to the Players' Championship as well. I mean, let's kick off some of our stories of the weekend here. First of all, of course, Heavy Hitters has landed. If you haven't checked out the set yet, strongly recommend you do. It's been hailed by many a Flesh and Blood pundit as one of the greatest limited sets that has ever been released, maybe the greatest here, and I tend to agree with them, of course. Yeah. Warrior, Brute, Guardian, all get a bunch of cards, of course, with a bunch of new heroes added to the mix here as well, some of whom already have risen to the top.
That is true. We'll get into that specifically in a second, I think. But I think the new set is really great. The Flesh and Blood pundits have never claimed that a set was the greatest limited set ever before. That's a joke. I feel like they say that every set sometimes, but I think this one is really good.
Yep.
It seems very focused on kind of back to basics. Kind of an extension of Outsiders, where there's no talents to really muddy things up. It's more about these hybrid cards, and specifically in this one, it's all about the wagering. It's all about the clash, and I think those are the two standout mechanics that have been really fun in my couple limited game or draft and sealed experience. That was such like a cool thing. I don't know, just like it was like, all right, we're gonna wager, all right, we're gonna clash. Like every time you did it, it was just like, this is fun, this is exciting. It brings a different element both to defense and offense, and I think that's probably one of the reasons, among many others, that this set is standing out to a lot of people.
Absolutely. So shout out to Naya in the chat there, of course, top 8 competitor from Battle Hardened down in Hartford, looking for Zane on stream in round 1. On that note, we can move on to our next story here for the weekend, which is San Diego absolutely threw down at our last AGE Open Series with 3 players, I think, in the top 4, Colin.
Yeah, definitely top 8. I think the top 4. I forget the actual top 4, but yeah, they show up in force. We love the San Diego community.
There's 3 in the top 8, right?
They're too good. There was 3 in the top 8, and it was Eugene, the other Allan, whose name I forgot. I'm sorry.
Allan Chavarin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was Allan Chavarin.
Yeah.
And then Zane the Rock Johnson himself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and obviously, Zane, who I mentioned in chat earlier on here, of course, with 2 top 8 so far and 20 points already in the 2024 AGE circuit here. So, looking forward to seeing a bit of Zane. We'll try and, of course, get him going sort of later on here, but it wasn't just him, of course, with a great performance. Allan, of course, who was like a Bolton player for the longest time. Levire, of course, also a deck that we saw Allan pick up, famously known for having this collaged together hero card of Levire. Like I think he tore it up, and and he used crayons, I think, on it.
I think
if you've ever played against Allan, I don't think it's an experience you're going to forget.
No. I believe Allan is the closest thing we have to a performance artist in Flesh and Blood.
Sure.
He brings an energy that is unmatched. He has the ripped up Levire card. He has a crayon and notepad set to keep track of his life total.
Yep.
Just everything. He plays on a paper, like the the welcome mat from Classic Battle set, paper mat. I don't know. Everything he does is just a choice and a vibe, and it's awesome, and we're always happy to have Allan here.
And I am curious to see what Allan brings to the table here, because again, he sort of says here he feels like Levire's in a great spot because now brute players, and we'll get into this a bit more, are much less reliant sort of on Scabskin scalers to give them action points. So that's like an element, a really highly varianced element of the brute game plan that has been really minimized, or at least in the spots that you like have to use it if you can generate those agility tokens.
Yeah.
A segue into our next topic, of course, as KO immediately has made an impact here in the classic constructed metaphor heavy hitters, with obviously 2 players in the top 8 of Battle Hard and Hartford, both on, I think, the same list. I think it was a mirrored 80 between Naya and Yuki, and Yuki ends up winning the whole thing with a victory against Margin Bay. Caleb Van Patten in the finals there. It was Kano versus KO. Let's talk about KO. He comes in, obviously, in sealed and in limited formats. He's a really solid pick. Like, there's a lot of stuff you can do with him on small hands or with sort of weird card pulls. But in Classic Constructed, he is an absolute beast.
Yeah, it's crazy that they're so worried about printing blue 6s, and they're just like, what if all cards were 6s for KO? But no, really, like it plays out differently for KO. It seems like a really interesting deck. Zane Johnson was saying the other day on the Attack Action podcast that he feels that KO is the new math deck. It's really the one that is kind of like presenting best numbers and the best math in the game right now. And I think that's just really interesting. And of course, we saw Yuki. I think she went 11-0 on that day.
Undefeated. Yep.
Like crazy, just like straight out the bat. Of course, she's exceptional in every single way. So, that's also, you kind of factor that into it as well. So KO won't necessarily win you the tournament, but, a good pilot on KO, that's going to be a scary thing.
Yeah, I mean, what seems so frightening about KO is that if you want to try and play a mid-range, value-oriented game against you, he will win.
Mm-hmm.
If you try and race him, he might still win. Just on the, I think a lot of people are very excited about, what you could do with cards like Berserk and, in terms of Blood Rush, Bellow's turns, but we're seeing less of the Berserk, more again of this value-oriented deck. Like, you have incredible attack. Swing Big obviously is available to you now. You have 3 more copies of Wild Ride, 3 more copies of Pulping that Reinhardt did not have access to, as the yellow versions of those cards are considered 6s in terms of the checks that you make as a brute. So all of a sudden, your core is very easy to build. Whereas Reinhardt, there was a big problem, is that if you wanted to sort of bring in a lot of cards with these powerful effects, or you wanted these blue cards that blocked, they weren't 6s. And all of a sudden, your variance, or there was a lot more risk on like a lot of these like Wild Ride turns, or like trying to make sure you're discarding 6s on KO. Basically, every card can be a 6, right? Outside of, you might have Cast Bones and you might have Blood Rush Bellow in the deck.
It's the oops all 6s.
Everything else is a 6, especially for the purposes of Cast Bones,
Yeah,
which
totally.
I'm sure we're going to talk about that card today, because that is disgusting.
Yeah.
It is like, in a similar way to Codex of Frailty, as far as I'm concerned, like, it is just that above rate, especially in like the best case scenario. It differs, of course, but I still think that's a good example of another card that's really going to define this format, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say, I think even KO does pretty well into Fatigue because of Cast Bones specifically. You're just like, okay, I'm just going to turn around and I'm going to present, +6 on my next attack, on my next turn after blocking out, also having a really good set of armor to block with. So KO's kind of like got all the numbers in his favor right now. But yeah, Cast Bones is nuts. It's crazy that it is, because normally I feel like Majestics aren't the best in limited. Sometimes they're very good, above rate, but sometimes they're more niche and they require a bit better deck tuning to really shine and be that powerful. But because of KO's power, because of the set itself, Cast Bones in limited is just like, yeah, you're gonna get a couple might tokens, and that itself is like super powerful, especially when you're starting at 20.
Yeah, I mean, and we can talk about the additional upside on a card like that. First of all, you as the KO player know what's on top of the deck, approximately, right? It is reordered to some degree, but you can actually sort of, if there's any concern about there being like a non-6 sort of coming off the top, you kind of know about that. So, yeah, bear that in mind. We will have our players meeting, I think, a little bit later this morning, as people are sort of getting set up here, as we've just
people still coming in. The players meeting happening in a couple minutes. But yeah, I mean, I think absolutely KO is something I'm very excited about. I haven't played it yet. Have you chance to play any of the new heroes?
So yes, I've been testing a fair bit of Victor in a few lists. I've played a lot against KO here, but I mean, we can talk about Victor here. I mean, you are printing a hero with text on the card that says draw a card. Very powerful. The fact that you could do this multiple times a game, which and again, the effortlessness within, in some cases, Victor can actually generate a gold token to draw a card is staggering. Your Aura Magus is a gold for all intents and purposes. You can block 2, and then if you need a gold there. Also, if you clash into a Golden Sun off the top, that's a gold. Win a Test of Strength clash, that's a gold. There are so many powerful cards in this deck that can generate gold from clashes or from sort of any other mechanism. So you are now there is a possibility that Victor maybe can't do a whole lot with that extra card. Right? That's the one thing you kind of build around, you kind of mitigate. And the shells for these Victor decks have looked pretty similar. Like, a lot of them are pretty similar. They're pretty figured out. So, in terms of, you have a lot of blue 3 blocks that make sense. Like Thunk is like a random one that you're going to come in with, because again, you win a clash revealing that, create a Might token.
Yeah.
You have, I think you have Test of Might, Test of Vigor in blue, 3 blocks here as well. So they come in very reasonable with also a lot of upside.
Yeah.
There are some matchups where Victor does not want to be clashing.
Yeah.
Right? A KO would be a problem for Victor. Yeah, you can try and redo a clash, but I don't think the value is there if you have to lose a gold token, given how powerful that is. But he's still good, because the core Guardian card pool is so very, very good. You are losing out, if you're not playing Bravo, you're losing out on the specializations. You're losing out on, Dominate printed on the card here. But Victor can present some ridiculously, like, above rate things. Like, Prime to Fight, for example, if you have a Might and Vigor token in play, is like, what, 3 for 10? It's just like, okay.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting
so what, a 2-card 10?
that the Seismic Surge kind of value part of Bravo doesn't carry over, but the Vigor tokens definitely kind of make up for that. And so, just you can swing in these crazy ways where all of a sudden you do just like pitch one card and you're coming in, with plus on power and with extra resources. And you also like revealing Golden Sun, you get that gold and then you draw Golden Sun. Like, It's pretty good.
Pretty good. And again, that's like what, like a 10 overpower.
Yeah.
You know, like Victor wants to throw these above rate attacks. He's less concerned with disruption, but you are going to want cards like Debilitate and Chokeslam, right? Like your absolute go-tos in terms of your Red Guardian attack. So you can still threaten this disruption. It's just you cannot guarantee it to the same degree that Bravo could, right? Bravo really has like such an availability of the specializations with incredible disruption abilities, just Starstrucks, of course, you know, because you're Crippling Crush, for example. So, you know, and obviously the ability to bring them out of his deck like through Showtime and other ways. But Victor, very, very solid. The core pool is quite similar. I think this guy is going to be really nasty.
Yeah.
And again, like you play Tectonic Plating with this guy. You're absolutely making surges, and they still find your value over the course of the game. And then you have like your Zealous Beltings, your Rousers sat in the sideboard. You can bring those in. You'll maybe, you know, Trounce is an incredibly powerful card.
Yeah.
Obviously, it suffers limitations of block cards, right? You can't be putting these in your arsenal, can't be cute with them. So this deck like tends to have like a less density of defense reactions than like Bravo is able to bring in. Like maybe you don't have a full list of Sinks and Fates in this deck. So that's at least what we're seeing right now. Well, the funniest thing was I was in the Purple Discord. And, you know, Victor gets announced that we see a chat pop up. People start getting in there. The first thing they do is like, right, who wants to come to my Victor server? We're going to make our own server where people can't come into people can't come to the Purple Discord. Shout out Taylor Crawford, by the way. So you can't come into the Discord and see the deck list. We're going to go elsewhere. So, you know, we went over there, had a Discord, and I got to sort of see what a lot of the preeminent Victor players were going for. So that's my rant. This guy's gas. He's extremely good.
It's pretty good. I hated everything about him when they revealed him, mostly because of his face. But
he's from Solana. Like, I can't say no. I play all heroes. So
exactly. He's from Solana, so I hate everything about him, just to go into my personal lore. But I was at work last night doing some things that didn't require a lot of attention, and it was late, so I was just like, you know, I'm gonna try playing some Victor. Just found some random list. I was like, this is fun. Like, you do all this stuff. It's got that feeling of like, oh, I clash, so I reveal a card. Cool, I get a gold token.
Free stuff.
It was just, and then there was the part where like I didn't really know what was going on. It's Talishar, so it does it for you, and you're just like, oh, I have gold now? Wait, what just happened?
If you win the Trance Clash, it does it so fast that you just see the tokens appear on
yeah. And then it was like, oh, I'm gonna get a gold when I do this thing, and I didn't get a gold. I was like, wait, I don't think I understand how his hero power works yet, but it was a lot of fun. You know, I had some people just dip out after 10 minutes of playing, but otherwise I was like, okay.
That's the Guardian experience, though.
Yeah, it really is. But it does seem more engaging than I thought it might be. I don't know if it's easy mode, but it's definitely interesting, and I'm more curious about him than I was previously. But, you know, I did hear, just to kind of jump over Guardians, we do have at least one Betsy player in the field today.
Really?
So I'm you know, rooting for Garrett. Hopefully he does well. We get him on stream, and we'll see how that goes. He was into it. I'm into Betsy. I don't know if she's good in CC, but I love her vibe, so I'm excited to see if someone can kind of crack that nut. But.
Yeah, I mean, so just looking at this card, right, you have a pump on your hero card, which is great. I mean, like, you know, that is very powerful effect, even if you like Ira, for example, and you know, like you can really leverage a +1, especially because a lot of Guardian attack actions in heavy hitters were printed with text saying, if the power of this attack is higher than its base, you get an extra effect, right? Concuss. Cards like this that say, yeah, I mean, all of a sudden now we have a disruptive element, providing you can find a way to boost the power of this attack. Yeah. Betsy also has, you know, and you know, especially in limited, a lot of these like Guardian auras that say, okay, here's an action point, or rather, here's the use of your action point. Your first attack next turn is +5 and wages of Victor token, like Big Bop, for example. Okay, so all of a sudden, like you know, you're priced into like a oscillating game style where you take a turn off, you might block a little bit, use your action point not to throw anything too heavy, come in with a big attack, and all of a sudden. Then Betsy starts to get kicking because you can make sure that attack is wagering something, right? Big Bob has that built in. Then overpower is relevant, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't like defense reactions still, you know, kind of poop on this one a little bit here. So that's why we're maybe not quite as excited about overpower, and that's also why I think that comparing this apples to oranges to sort of Bravo, for example, like that dominate effect, obviously is much more exciting.
Yeah.
And the thing about Betsy is have to be wagering.
Yeah.
You have to be wagering a lot. Especially if you're using your headpiece, the Good Time Chapeau, which says like, hey, if you wager, there's extra sort of bonuses that you can get here. You have to destroy gold also to activate that. She seems great, but you're rolling the dice a lot.
I think that is what kind of the general consensus seems, and makes sense because there's not too many wager cards yet, so it does really narrow your pool, your card pool selection to just those cards, like basically just this set. You can have some good Guardian staples, you can have some other cards that might help you, but like those cards that are really good and limited, like Big Bop, which like I was way cool on until I played Draft, and then I was like, oh no, Big Bop's really good. I should have drafted those instead of passing them to the guy next to me. But it does seem like that's the struggle she has right now. I am, curious. One, curious if we'll get more wager cards if we have like a supplemental set, if that's something they're going to keep kind of flushing out more, or if, there's just something there we're not totally seeing, obviously. But like, it's tough when your hero power is so tied to a specific mechanic because then, you just can't. If you don't play into that, then you basically have a blank hero, and then you might as well play somebody whose hero tech says something.
In her defense, like I think there's a ton of stuff printed with wager on it, right? Like that is really one of the most core mechanics of the set, and she doesn't hate having clash cards either, because you definitely feel like she's favored to win a lot of clashes just based on the average attack power of a lot of her cards. She has a specialization, bet big. I mean, when she's wagering like a gold, vigor, and a might token on that attack, that's it's printed pretty above rate. It's like a 4 for 8, right? Like on text again. She often she makes use of a lot of these vigor tokens quite frequently as well. All of a sudden, it's a 2-card 8 as opposed to just sort of having to pay full price for it.
Yeah.
The value seems incremental, though.
Yeah.
Right? Over the course of the game, you are trying to gain might and vigor tokens, make things stronger, make things less expensive, and find victory. I really hope we get to see like the Betsy player on camera here, but we'll see how that goes.
We'll see how it goes. I think there are wager cards. I think more.
You want more payoff, right?
Well, what I was going to say is that probably too many of them block for 2 is a thing that you kind of got to get into there, and that's not what you always want.
Especially when you want to take turns off, right, to set up these auras. You would want to block prior to that, but you're stuck with a bunch of 2 blocks.
So it could be difficult, but we did just get sign off. We're going to jump into this because we have a great announcement. AGE Players Champs comes at the end of the year, the end of this circuit. What do we got?
Yeah, so I mean, in the past, right, this has been a really exciting event here. Players playing for a huge chunk of prizing as well. It's it's quite prestigious here in SoCal. Now, Legend Story Studios are getting behind what we're doing here at the AGE Players Championships, and it will now be a PTI event to boot. That's right.
Go.
You can compete for circuit points here throughout the AGE Opens, qualify for the Players Championships, and earn yourself a PTI. That's not all, of course. There's a lot on the line, but yeah, even more so now than we had before.
This year, our winner gets $1,100 of the prize pool, and a gold cold foil, and a PTI. Like hell yeah, dude, we did it.
Yeah, which is fantastic. I think in the past this has really been a popular event for players locally and even interstate to come down to now. We've sweetened the pot even more. It also makes the stakes a lot higher once we get to the Players Championship as well, which is an awesome time. Again, it's a bit more intimate, right? It's like it is invite only, and I think this would be. I can't think of too many invite-only tournaments that would have PTIs available to them.
Yeah,
right
I'm not sure.
It's a pretty new thing here. So obviously, thanks to Legend Story Studios for getting behind. It has been a local initiative supporting us and allowing us to take that to the next level and allowing us to offer not only you at home just a more improved competitive experience with players really leaving out there, but also more incentive for our players to leave it all out there themselves and show what they're capable of. It's a fantastic scene out here on the West Coast. Thank you. Yeah, Flesh and Blood TCG in the chat.
Hell yeah.
Big fan.
Yeah.
Can we get back to talk about how busted these heavy hitters heroes are?
Of course. Which one would you like to talk about next?
All right. Let's talk about Warriors.
Well, he didn't label these correctly, but
fine.
that was the right one. Kasai.
When I first started playing Flesh and Blood, I only play Kasai, only play Blitz. Obviously, different hero at the time, but the idea was the same, right? Small hands, accrue value, have on hits in terms of copper generation that have a payoff, right? That was through Blood on Her Hands, which is still a possibility to play with this Kasai, the Golden Sand hero, but there's even more now, right? You print it on the card. First of all, your sword attacks being virtually free here. It's Courage of Bladehold, printed on a freaking hero card, which is pretty nice. Big fan of that. Also, the frequency with which you're able to draw cards, right?
Yeah.
Kasai now has cards that just inherently allow you to do that. Draw Swords is a good example, right? It looks on face like a very expensive pump, +3, draw a card. The red one is, you're paying 3 for. But again, you've discounted your sword attacks. So you've already gotten 2 value back on that straight away. Who knows what card you've drawn? You've also got a pump there. So it may as well be like a 1 for 3 pump, which is very respectable. It also enables you to see another card. So big fan of that. Kasai's play patterns definitely seem to be pretty mid-rangey, right?
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I haven't played it yet, but it sounds a bit grindy, which is cool. I'm into the mid range, but I think for Warrior, that's that's kind of a different tempo.
I mean, so what's beautiful about Kasai is that in the thing that was present, I think, in the old Kasai in Blitz is that she plays really well with these small hands. That's why we say grindy, because she can throw 2 cards to block and go, okay, pitch for a sword attack, Blade Runner. Right, so all of a sudden you swing for 2, and then you're going to go again, a pump on your next attack, and all of a sudden it's a 2-card 7, baby.
Yeah,
2-card 7. We like that, So she inherently, like, those turns off small hands are on rate at least, and then you can generate more value with them now, because again, banishing 2 reds, 2 yellows from your graveyard to get a gold on hit is pretty big. And the reason why it's grindy is because you have to block this.
Yeah.
If you allow your Kasai opponent to generate too much gold, firstly, she's easily drawing cards without cards that have a draw card effect. You just pop a gold and you discount your sabers. So those golds are neutral on value.
Yeah.
Pay 2 to crack it. You get a card and your swords are free. So she is one of the best gold crackers in the game. And then, of course, Raise an Army, her specialization, allows her to summon Centauri Cell Swords. For each gold you pay into that, which are kind of like chunky Aether Ashwings, really hard to deal with.
Yeah.
It is interesting in the late game.
Can't pop those guys.
That's right. You have to attack them. And there's some decks that just cannot afford to do that, especially unlike Dromai, which she might develop a couple at a time. You just might have 3 out of nowhere, and these are not like 1/1s. So that's that's a late game approach, and it's payoff for that gold generation. It also could be some almost a deterministic win condition if you're able to block and play that mid range game.
Yep.
It does mean you have to play a lot of yellows though,
It's true.
because you need to banish a number of yellows. So again, we're returning back to almost like a Bolton Prism-esque sort of world where you're really incentivized to play cards of certain colors. Icelander, of course, really wanted to play blues. So that affects your deck building and makes it look interesting. It's not just like a Warrior Shell.
Totally.
And she's a dual wielder, right? Where Warriors in the past, outside of combo Bolton, were sort of using Raiden, and Doria's using Dawnblade here. So it is a fresh style. I think playing against is going to take practice for people, and she's going to be happy to throw you 2-3 card blocks and just sort of write it out here. So it's fun for sure to play. I've tinkered with a few builds. Trying to get the yellow ratio right has been challenging for me.
I think any class or hero that they make incentivize specific color of cards, I think it's just really interesting because it just kind of forces people to use different cards and value them differently. Yep. It gives value to cards that otherwise might seem kind of pointless outside of being resources or limited kind of scenarios. So I think it's really cool, but 4 cards is a lot. You banishing 4 cards, you can only do this, a limited number of times in a game. I mean, if you're running 60, I guess you can do this, 13, 14 times or whatever.
That's a lot of times.
It's a lot, but that means you have to have half and half red and yellow in your deck, and then I don't know. Does she run blues?
She does.
Okay. Yeah. So you're already going to start lower than that.
You want glints. You want probably blue hit and run, blue Blade Runner as well. So you do have a decent number of blues, and I think it's like the ratio of reds to yellows. It's maybe 2/3 to 1/3. Not counting blues here. So it's you obviously but it's fine because some of these cards make sense in the deck anyway. Like yellow Blade Runner's a great card. Cashin you're probably going to play as well. You could still
Randy
play
here. Randy's here.
Randy
Let's
made
go,
it
baby.
Let's go. You can opt for a blood on her hands based strategy in this deck because you still have you don't have copper generation baked into your hero ability anymore, but you still have probably 6 to 9 copies of Outland Skirmish in your deck. Probably just the 6, the red and yellow ones, and you have Spores of War. So you have minimum 9 forms of copper generation here. And adding that to all the turns in which your opponent needs to block you out because of your potential gold generation,
crazy.
You're probably going to get some of that through. Most of the time, I'm throwing blood in the hands to block, or I'm or pitching it or whatever, because I think it's a little less reliable to get enough. But you don't need a 6 copper blood in her hands turn to do something that's really above rate here. So you have to block her on hits generally, unless you can send more disruptive ones back her way, and that's pretty scary. So yeah, it's chip here, chip there, but she's going to be a lot of fun. I
Still
know
a
a lot of
warrior,
people are
you know.
cooking on it at the moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
still a warrior. You got to worry about every time they hit you that something bad or worse is going to happen later because of that. So, yeah, it'll be exciting to see. We'll definitely get a meta breakdown for everyone as soon as we have that. I'm not sure. Did we get a full final count on how many players we have, or no?
I
No,
think we
not
just
yet.
had the players meeting
All right, so we
finalized.
just had a players meeting. It looks like people are they
Shout
pairing
out
up?
Chris Ciali in the building. Good to see him. Of course, we saw him on camera, I think, in the first of our Hartford games, right? Chris playing a Raiden Bolton list, I think, into one of the most degenerate fatigue Bravo lists I've ever seen. I have no problem calling that player out. That was that was abominable. I look, I'm biased towards Chris, of course, as a local, but that was the spirit killer and a half, that one. Shout out to Savage Feats, of course, for putting that coverage on and recording those games and showing us later. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it sounds like we are getting ready for our first round. Paired up. We're going to find a great game. Let us know in the chat what you want to see today, what heroes you're most excited about. Thank you all for being here. Shout out to Taylor, my boy from the Attack Action Podcast. And everyone else will be back in 2 minutes.